get where I look like I have sleeves on, but I don't.
If you want to pause, you can put. If you want to change your shirt, we can wait. I think it's okay.
No, we're live right
live.
now.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, right. Oh, that's right. It says live up there. Okay.
Yes, we're on. So good morning. Welcome to Sunday Soul Food. And I see people are watching. We were just laughing because I am sleeveless because I was sitting out on my back lanai having coffee, enjoying my morning, and completely lost track of time as I often do. And I literally looked at my phone. Something said, "Oh, what time is it?" I looked at my phone. It was 8:59. So I'm like, okay, I don't have time to go change shirts. I have my coffee. I just ran in here and jumped on. So here we are. So no, I don't have time to go change my shirt.
Okay. I didn't realize you're live already.
We are live. So if you have questions, even if you have stream questions, I still have the stream flowing. I know it's weird. You're used to me going into trance and doing all of that. I'm just taking a little break from that and allowing the stream to flow in a more natural way. Anytime I'm at my spiral, they're here. I think that the really deep, detailed information probably comes easier when I go into that trance type state. But what they have said is we've given you everything with the 4 pillars of Taya. Everything, because really what they're saying is they exist in all of us. And not everybody necessarily has the ability to go into trance and channel the way that I do. But all of that truth, all of that knowledge already exists within us. The entire universe exists within us. Everything that we need to have this human experience exists within us. It doesn't mean that we can't have community, and it doesn't mean that we can't bring the stream in. It's not about that. It's just about the fact that they have given us 5 years of guidance and information and a practice that allows all of us to do that ourselves. So they're kind of making themselves obsolete, but not really. I love channeling. I will channel. I will always channel for the rest of my life as long as they come to me and I'm able to do that. And that way I will do it. So I'm not saying I'm never channeling again, but I am taking some time away from doing the trance channeling. That's why I'm doing all of these roundtables where I'm just inviting everybody that wants to jump on live and join the conversation, because I think the exploration and the community around the practice at this point is the most important thing. If you're into this, if you're into the stream's message, into the Taya practice. So, with all of that said, do you have questions? Do you have things you want to share? How many weeks are you out of boot camp now?
I don't know. I think I wrapped up sometime in June. It was like mid-June, I think. Late June. So we're about 2 months out. Yeah. So it's been fun, Actually, it was funny that I'm a freelance musician, and usually August is a notoriously slow month. In fact, most musicians assume they're going to be unemployed for August. And this August is just hopping busy. I had like an 8-service week with like 2 different orchestras, and every weekend is booked up until like October. So I'm working full on through, and it was kind of weird. I was coming out of boot camp. Because when I was in boot camp, I was pretty deliberate to not try to manifest anything specifically, because I just wanted to learn the whole process and just focus on doing that. So when I got out, it was actually kind of challenged. There was a little bit of a, I don't know, it was a bit scary, because you're like, oh, all of a sudden, like, now we're doing this for real, which I guess is maybe part of my own creation, because I guess everything is real, I don't know. But anyway, so I kind of set this intent that, okay, I want to have more work coming in. And it was a few weeks later, I kind of looked at my calendar. I was like, oh, wait a second. I'm actually really busy now. And I don't quite remember exactly where all the pieces started falling in, but it sort of just kind of, it's kind of what the stream would say. Like, you kind of look back and you're like, oh yeah, I've kind of already, it's kind of appeared, and I didn't quite, it kind of gradually fell into place,
Yeah.
So,
Well, I
yeah,
think the key words there are that you weren't trying, you weren't hammering, you set an intention and kind of left it alone, and then realized. And my there's so many things I've manifested in my life where I down the road while I'm into it realize, oh yeah, I set an intention around this maybe a long time ago, and
yeah,
now here I am experiencing it. That's how magical we really are. But we
yeah,
operate again, the word I'm going to use the M word in this matrix that says you got to push, you got to try, you got to set goals, you got to hammer at it, and sometimes that works, and a lot of times it doesn't work, especially around the things that we put a lot of pressure on.
yeah, yeah.
So I think you approach boot camp. It's funny because you're the boot camp is on hiatus for the summer, and it's the first time we've taken a hiatus in 5 years, so it's nice to sort of have a break from all of that. And you were the last person to come through, and it's interesting that I think that you taught us as much as we taught you in the boot camp journey, in your boot camp journey, because the original version of boot camp, there was a lot of my ego built into it of wanting people to manifest things
Mm,
in boot camp. And of course, over that 4 year, I say 5 year, 4 year span of teaching it and evolving the practice, it became a lot less about manifesting things and a lot more about just shifting consciousness and mindset. And the things are just the byproduct of that. And I realized that the people that have stuck around and kept in the practice and stay in the community were not people that were coming in looking to manifest XYZ.
yeah,
We have success stories there. We have people that have come in and manifested millions of dollars and all of these material things, and generally they move on, and that's okay. We see them at reunion, and that's fine. But the people that tend to stick in the community are the ones that really got into the mindset shift, the operating system aspect of it. And I think that that's where the most value is, because the stuff is great. But I've told my story a million times. I manifested lots of stuff and realized that, okay, stuff is fine, but it's not giving me this clarity, this understanding of humanity, understanding of why the world is the way that it is, why we're polarized, why there's all this fighting all the time and polarization, and why there are challenges in life and all of that. That is the greatest manifestation for me personally, to come from everything the stream offers.
right. Yeah, I think I kind of had that shift because it's funny. I think back to like when I was kind of considering doing a nice mug. I got to get one of those.
I was going to say, well, I'm thinking about shutting down the merchandise. So if
Oh,
anybody
really?
wants merchandise, they might want to get that sooner than later.
Okay. So yeah, like I remember when I was considering going into boot camp, and I had a laundry list of things that were key, like kind of topics I wanted to resolve, and and it wasn't really things that I wanted. It was more like areas where I could see I was a bit stuck in a rut on. But I think I remember talking to, actually it was Jess Garza and Sam Page. I talked to both of them before I went in, and I just said like, what's it like, and I kind of got a very just good perspective on it from a former boot campers. But I remember one of them, I asked the question. It's funny, I think back to this now. The question is a very pre-tie question actually, but I said like, I think the question I asked was something like, well, I don't want to do all this work and just feel better, and then nothing changes in my life, and then I've kind of wasted my money and my time.
I don't want to feel better. I won't stop.
And as these words are coming out of my mouth, I was like, all right, I think this is maybe a silly. And I think it was Jess, and she said, well, I understand where you're coming from. It's not quite how it works. You kind of have to start feeling better, and then you get and then I get it now, because I kind of look back in that thinking back then and kind of chuckle at it, but it's legitimate, because I think this is what maybe holds people back, because
Sure.
if you haven't done boot camp and you haven't had that shift, you are like, there's a pragmatic part of the brain that's saying, well, thinking like in terms of like a chart of like, well, like a bottom dollar thing,
Yeah, return on investment. People are
Yeah.
looking for return on investment.
Yeah.
And that's why I have to tell you, when I got into this world, uh, the whole online coaching world, and I happened to meet somebody that was into the online coaching spirituality sub brand, if you will.
Yeah.
And she came from a much bigger online coaching world. It's not just about spirituality. In fact, she was very unique. It was very boutique of her to just get into working with what she called spiritual entrepreneurs, which I'd never heard that term before I met her.
Okay.
And it's all based around return on investment.
Right.
Her whole thing is, I'm going to teach you how to make 6 figures as a spiritual entrepreneur. Totally, exactly what I was kind of getting away from in the corporate world. And when she was introduced to me, I had the podcast and I was publishing the first book, and it really turned me off. I was like, oh God, that's what I just quit. I don't want to get back into that BS, that stuff. And then it hit me over the head, the stream. And it's the only time I ever got a vibe from the stream. And it was kind of a, hey, dumbass, pay attention to this. They didn't say that. It's always a drop in, that I get of thought. And then I put the words to it. My brain puts the words to it. But that's what it felt like was, hey, dumbass, you're being judgmental. This is a vehicle for you to do what you want to do. Right. My intention was to take the practice that didn't even have a name at the time, to take the practice that I had created for myself and teach it to other people around the world. Yeah. That was it. That's what I wanted to do. Hey, I figured this thing out. This is the key to law of attraction. The key to consciousness creation is this. I want to teach this to everybody. And it was very clear from the beginning that it wasn't just about stuff, but the stuff is the byproduct of raising your vibration or well-being, whatever that looks like. And in our world, well-being does look like money.
Right.
So that was what it was all about. And in the beginning, it turned me off. And then I meditated. I got clarity around it. It was definitely hey, this is your path opening up. Don't judge it away. And I got into it. I'm very happy to this day that I did.
Yeah.
But all of that marketing is really based on and that's what her thing was. I'm going to teach you to make $100,000 a year or 6 figures a year. Well, I was a unicorn in that group because I was already making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year throughout most of my adult life when I came in there. And everybody else in there were not that. Most of the people in there were tarot card readers and psychics and things like that were struggling to pay their bills. And they were trying to figure out how to, and of course, the vehicle was to do this online course. And so once I stopped the judgment of the online course, I thought, well, I'm going to figure out how to do this my way. I'm not going to just follow this template, and I'm not going to go out there and promise people that they're going to make X, Y, Z, because I don't know that this is going to do that for them. And I get it. You're supposed to go promise the moon to get people to pay you money, but I was not down with that. I'm like, that is not what I've gotten from the stream ever. The stream has never pushed return on investment ever. And so I start teaching people, I think it was called abundance breakthroughs. I'm going to teach you how to break through your abundance blocks. Okay. And that quickly, within months, morphed into the Taya practice. Mm-hmm. It's like it was always there, and it was just waiting to be discovered. Right. And we discovered it in teaching it to other people. And it quickly morphed into more of a healing thing and more of an emotional thing. And that there's so much more satisfaction in that. To this day, of all the people that have come through boot camp, the people that have healed trauma and healed terminal illness and figured out how to love themselves is more meaningful to me than the people that manifested money and houses and stuff like that. And so, that's what it turned into. But the marketing world around this stuff is very much set up for, I'm a coach and I'm going to teach you how to make X number of dollars. That allows them to say, okay, I'm going to invest this many thousands to get this many hundreds of thousands back. Easy equation.
Right.
And if they believe it, they give it power. And if they truly give it power through the process, it works. Yeah. And the first thing I tell you in boot camp is, this is you. You've got to give this the power. When you start demonizing this, you're going to fulfill that vibration. And we've seen people come in and, oh gosh, this is frustrating, or it's too hard, or it doesn't work, and they demonize themselves right out of it, and they don't get what they invested their money to get.
Yeah.
And I had to get over the fact that, that's not my responsibility.
Right.
I tell you up front, you're going to put money into this, you're going to give it the power, and you are the one that is changing you. We're just giving you the tools and the guidance to do it. And you did that beautifully. Beautifully. So in future, and boot camp's coming back. We're not going to not have boot camp, because boot camp is, as you said the other day, it's too meaningful not to have a version of it. The new version of boot camp is really going to be focused on that. Hey, you're investing in clarity. You're investing in an operating system that's going to carry you through the rest of your life, not in the matrix if you choose not to be. If that's not worth anything to you, then this probably isn't something that you should invest in. But just being able to observe the matrix and not have it bat you around emotionally or drag you down the vibrational spiral. I just look at how terrified and how anxiety-ridden humanity is. I think this practice is a very valuable thing, however you learn it, for everyone. But that's just me and my experience.
Yeah, exactly. I think, I mean, like if I go back and actually sit down and math out all of the work that just magically appeared, that I don't know how or why it showed up in my book, and then I definitely got my money's worth out of it, for sure. And not to mention like the physical changes, the relationship changes, the mindset changes, changes in my playing as a musician, the fun I had. I'm having more fun playing in orchestras now and hanging out backstage with my colleagues, and I'm like, don't get as bothered. And about you talking like the Matrix. I mean, I read the news every day, like, because I'm very curious about what's happening in the world, but it's just that it's a curiosity, like, oh, that's interesting. This happened, It's not like I'm upset by it,
Yeah.
But the thing is like, for someone going into boot camp, first of all, you can't promise that anyone's going to get results, because really it's just down to them. That's what the whole thing keeps coming back to. And I've been sort of exploring this whole spiritual stuff for, years and years ago. I started all this. And I think it came to this realization that we are ultimately the ones that have to take total ownership of our lives. But we can't say to a person, well, if you do this program, you're going to get blank, 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 because we don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
You
don't. You just don't know what the outcome is going to be. But the consistent thing that I've seen is the people that come in and give it power and stick with it through the difficult time. And it is difficult. It is boot camp.
Yeah.
It's not, playtime. It's boot camp. You're getting in and doing work. Yeah. And the work continues, but the work does morph for anyone that continues to do the work, and morphs into something so satisfying that you love doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you do the work, you do get the results. It's weird that like the results sort of sometimes come in a way that you couldn't have anticipated, or in a form that was maybe slightly different. And sometimes it's kind of weird. I sort of find sometimes I would get the thing that I was wanting, but then realize I didn't really care anymore, because I'd already kind of enjoyed enough of it in my imagination that I sort of like didn't care when it showed up in real life, or appreciated it, but wasn't like, I can remember the first time I won an audition, and it was this feeling of like, like, oh, I won. Oh my goodness. And it was like, but if you've sort of like been winning in your head for so long, I'm not saying I'm quite there yet, but if someone's doing that, then when they actually win, they're like, oh, well, that's cool, but I've already imagined this a million times and I'm kind of expecting it, like, so you still enjoy it, but it loses some of it's not this sort of like same, I guess, relief. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying, but it's sort of, I don't know. It's just all of the process just kind of, it just changed a lot how I perceive like goals and achievements. And it's just, it's transformative. It really is,
Yeah, and I love to watch the transformations. You know, that's just such satisfying work for me that I can't imagine doing anything else with the rest of my life than doing this. So I do see we have people watching us live.
Yeah.
So make yourselves known by saying hello. Make sure that you're commenting through.
I do see we have people watching us live.
There we go. Watching us live and comment through YouTube, not on Patreon, because the Patreon comments, we don't see that until after the fact, but we see the YouTube comments live. So say hello, let us know who you are watching. We just see a number as people log on up there. And happy to answer questions about the practice. Can answer the stream questions. And if I can't answer a stream question, I'll tell you I can't answer a stream question, but put them up there. I'm kind of curious to see how this, I have yet to be stumped on a stream question when I wasn't in trance. Because when I'm happy and I'm up my spiral, they're here.
Yeah. Usually when I'm writing my questions, I kind of in the back of my mind know what the answer is going to be, but I still want to hear them say it because then they always show something else I hadn't thought of, you know?
Yeah.
But I do have a question for you, and this is a topic I thought I'd like to maybe explore at some point, and maybe we could do a podcast about it at some point. I'm curious about the channeling process for you and how you do that. And I guess the angle I'm going with is that I kind of, the stream is always saying that everyone has their own version of their stream that they access through either channeling or for other creative ways. I've thought of channeling in ways, but by a musician playing music or writer writing and so or a lawyer arguing a case or public speaker, something like that. I'm just a bit curious about what your channeling experience is like and how you do that and how other people can sort of learn to do that in their own way.
For me, it's something that it took me a long time, not until I discovered Abraham, into my, I was turning 40 around that time. I didn't really know what channeling was. I came to understand in my adult life that this knowing that I had about things, not everybody was as tuned into that as I was. As a kid, this knowing, I tell the story over and over again about my father left when I was 6. And so I had to be 6 or younger because I remember a friend of theirs came by our house. My mother and father were still together, and she had this fancy new car. It was a Lincoln, I think it was a Mark III or something. Silver. It was all silver top, silver interior, and it had a sunroof. It had all these little shiny buttons, and I'd never seen a car like that before. My mother drove a Ford Maverick, which at the time was an economy car. Now it's a truck, but back then it was an economy car. My father had an old beat-up Volkswagen Bug, and that's my extent of car knowledge back then. And I fell in love with cars at that moment when I saw all of these shiny buttons in the window and the ceiling, and all that was just so cool, And she drove away, and I remember them saying, we'll never have anything like that, essentially, and we'll never be able to afford anything like that. And I remember thinking as a little kid, you can have anything that you want. What are you talking about? Why I knew that their belief was going to create the reality. And I was like 5 or 6. And I remember that. And my father left shortly after that. And my life got really disrupted. My father cheated on my mother, left. They got a divorce. My mother sold our house immediately, gave our dogs away, and abruptly moved us back to her hometown, which was, for a 6-year-old, pretty damn traumatic looking back. And my mother didn't handle the divorce very well. She basically said, your father cheated on me with a whore, and he doesn't love you, and he left. That was how that was handled. So I think at that time, I had no choice but to go inward just to survive, because my mother was going through this major, emotional thing that she never recovered from for the rest of her life. And I had no choice. My brother was 4 years older than me. He kind of took care of himself in a different way. And I was really just left alone. And being that I was left alone, I had to go into that inner voice for my worthiness. And it carried me through life. And I got into like my teen years, and I just understood people. I understood ego, and I understood fear and insecurity and all of this stuff. And it wasn't because I was a good student, because I wasn't. I spent a lot of time in my mind, and I had this deep understanding of how the world worked. And I didn't necessarily want to play around in the matrix. I didn't want to be in school. I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to just do my own thing. I started a real estate development business at 19 with no money, and I just believed I could. And so I always defied the odds. And so I always had that going on. I would go to psychics in my 20s and 30s. I would go see psychics trying to figure out what was going on. We know that story that told me that was a channel. That's the first time I'd ever heard that. I didn't know what the hell that was. And then when I finally started paying attention to Abraham, I realized, okay, all of this stuff that I've judged as weird and woo-woo and out there and all of that, I get that it's not all of that spirituality stuff. That's all human created window dressing for an inner journey of clarity, just like religion is. It's really just another human version of it. And so that never really did a lot for me. Most spiritual stuff never did a whole lot for me. But that inner knowing and that inner, what I call source, and the reason that I call it source is because it is the source of creation and it is in us. And I just know that. I just know it. And so I set an intention to be able to communicate my knowing in a more effective way so that I could share it. Because I had to kind of get over the fact that, okay, everybody may have this available to them, but the vast majority of humanity has turned the volume down on that. And they're operating in the matrix. They're paying bills, they're fearing, they have anxiety, they're trying to, pull ahead to the next level of whatever that they think is going to bring them happiness. And I got caught up in that in my 30s. And I got to that threshold where I had everything that I thought I was supposed to have to be a happy person, and it wasn't making me truly happy. And that's when I thought, well, okay, that happiness thing that I understood when I was younger and sort of forgot for a decade in my 30s, I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to go back to that knowing. And I set an intention to be able to write it and speak it. And I didn't have the miraculous Esther Hicks. She tells the story of being told that she was a channel, and within, I don't know if it was days or months or whatever, she was almost in a car accident. And in the car accident, suddenly Abraham started speaking through her. And she was meditating and writing and doing all this automatic writing where like something was moving her hands and stuff like that. That wasn't my experience. I taught myself to communicate it. And by teaching myself, I've taught myself everything. I taught myself how to shave, how to drive, how to swim, how to tie a tie, everything in business, writing. I've taught myself everything in my life. I do not like being taught by other people. I like to teach myself. So I taught myself how to channel. And the writing part of it was I understood how to shift into a vibration. I call it like shifting into a gear. How to tap into a vibration. And when I wrote the stream book, I consciously set the intention to tap into the vibration of Wayne Dyer. That's somebody that I did read that I did like. His stuff was more pragmatic than the really woo-woo. I tried to read a Sylvia Browne book once, and it started off with, in heaven there's a golden file cabinet and everyone has a folder in the file. And I know she was probably being metaphorical, but I'm like, this is silly. And I put the book down and never read it. So the Wayne Dyer stuff kind of resonated with me. And so I tapped into that vibe when I wrote the book. And I remember I had written a manuscript for a novel, and I did a lot of self-training around writing and grammar and English and all of that. I'm certainly not perfect today, but I'm a lot better than I was with my 10th grade education. So I did teach myself all of that. So I went through that process of writing. I wrote the whole book. I never published it. But I then tapped into that Wayne Dyer vibration to channel and write. And I never say that publicly. I mean, this is Patreon, so it's pretty private, but because I don't want Wayne Dyer's family or estate coming after me. That's a big thing to come after in comparison to
the Dyer estate.
Yeah,
kind of agenda with this
plagiarizing Wayne Dyer from beyond. Yeah. But I did. I tapped into that vibration, and it created that reality for me that I could communicate on paper. And then I wanted to do it verbally. And so I would shift into the gear and I would speak. And in the beginning, it was really weird and really forced. But then I got to a point where I realized that I'm speaking into a recorder. I'm not channeling for a purpose. And I need to start channeling for a purpose. I need to be speaking to an audience, even if I don't know who that audience is. And that's why I just did the podcast. Podcasting wasn't as huge as it is now. It was something that was kind of fringe and a little weird. And, the weirdos were listening to podcasts. And I thought this is the perfect place to do something weird like channeling, is just put a podcast out. And the people that are going to stop and listen are the people that are into this stuff.
Right.
So I created the Stream with David podcast. And, all of this happened kind of quickly, where I was teaching myself to have more of like a Q&A experience with the stream, like not just letting knowledge drop in, but going and retrieving it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember asking, who are you? I know now that you're something that's more than just me, and that not everybody has this way. Who are you? And that, again, that clarity dropped in. We're not a former person, all of these names that people give, that's just to humanize the energetic realm, Abraham and all of these, Theo and all these other names that are out there. That's just a human being processing the energetic realm in a way that they can relate to. And we are taught to give such reverence to God that people don't like to say they're channeling source, but they are channeling source. In fact, source is all that is. Once a human being ceases to be, that human version of them is that specific vibration of that specific experience. We're caught up in our ego, so we want to think that David Strickle and David Rood are going to go be David Strickle and David Rood in other lifetimes, but we're not. Right. That's why we don't have a recollection of, when David Strickle was, a young girl on the prairie, and had a different name, that was my consciousness. Right. It's a strand of consciousness that was having the experience. And what we can relate to is that, I was told once that I was an Egyptian woman who could channel and was thrown off a cliff for her ability to she was a seer. I guess supposedly, according to this person, that my strand of consciousness has been a seer and other experiences. Okay. So I haven't really explored that with the stream, believe it or not. I just haven't cared to explore that. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I get how consciousness works now. I don't feel the need to try to go and explore infinite other experiences as me. I just don't feel the need to do that. So I'm way off track here, but I'll get back on track. So the how-to channeling thing came about by me setting the intention, realizing that the podcast was the way for me to find an audience, because I didn't have anybody in my life. I didn't have people knocking down my door for me to channel for them, because in my professional life, I kept that very hidden. I couldn't do that in a professional environment. In my personal life, I also kept it hidden because nobody understands that. And my family and friends at the time didn't get it. So I didn't have a lot of opportunity to channel for people. So I channeled on the podcast. And that sort of gave the channeled information a destination. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, I just picked topics. Yeah. And in my detuning of fear, I said, gosh, what are the topics there? And one of them was the Trump presidency, because this was 2017. He was a new president. What is that going to be all about? I should go back and listen to that now that we are where we are with all that. I should go back and listen to that. But I
listened to it like a week ago. It was episode 2, I think, or 3. It was really interesting. You should go listen to it again. It's very interesting.
Is it?
Yeah.
I will go listen to it. Yeah. So the channeling in the beginning, as you know, if you just listen to it, was very different. It was very forced. There was a long pauses that I would have to edit. I used to edit my own podcast. I would have to edit out these pauses because it didn't just start happening the way it happens today. It took time. Yeah. It took time for me to relax into it, to get comfortable with it, to be able to communicate that way. And we may be coming to another evolution where things just come to me without going into trance. But I know a lot of people like the trance thing. They really like that. They like feeling like I am bringing in and David has stepped back and they're here. I get that. And I'm not saying I'm never going to do that again, because that's not where I am. I'm just taking a break from that. So it's not an easy explanation. Obviously, I just took 20 minutes to describe it. So the how to was a unique journey for me, and I think everyone's journey in it is unique. I do also think that you have the ability to play a musical instrument better than most of humanity. Adele has the ability to sing better than most of humanity. I do accept that perhaps I have the ability to channel better than most of humanity, and that's my thing. And that's okay. That not everyone is going to visit. There was a podcast one time where I said, from my perspective, everybody can do this. Everybody can. And it wasn't a hey dumbass moment, but it was sort of a scolding, like, why are you saying that? Why are you setting this expectation that you're all the same and that other people are going to be able to do what you do? This is your ego and your insecurity pretending like that you're no big deal. This is something special that you have to offer the world. And the more special you believe it is, the more special the world will believe it is. And sometimes I don't think it's special enough. That I take it too much for granted that, oh, it's no big deal. Everybody can do this, being humble and all of that stuff. But I don't think that everyone is meant to do the same stuff. We're not equal. Everyone has value, and they can discover that value, whatever that is. And of course, society doesn't value everything the same. It's just the polarity of our environment dictates that, someone that's fantastic at teaching school children isn't going to make as much money as someone that's fantastic at playing basketball. Mm-hmm. Even though, which has more value, teaching children knowledge and making them want to learn things, or getting a ball through a net. You think about it, it's kind of silly, the things that we put millions of dollars of value on, and the things that we think, gosh, how can we pay this person less? Right. Teaching the future generation, not a big deal at all.
Yeah.
So, we don't all have the same abilities, but we do all have source in us.
Yeah.
And I do think we can go inward and get that clarity and have an inner journey in this matrix world, and operate in this matrix world while having that inner relationship with the source of all creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hi, Natalie. Just getting around to saying hello to everybody. Good to see you on. If anybody has questions, type them in for David or myself. David just completed boot camp in June. He is one of the more inquisitive people that have come through boot camp and loves to ask questions of the stream. Mm-hmm. We will be bringing the stream back in trance channeling at some point, but right now I'm just really exploring what this community can be. I really want to build the community and share about the stream's teachings before we start asking for more.
Yeah. There's Donna's here too. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Donna. Good to see you on.
Good to see you.
So everybody seemed to like my ice maker story.
Yeah.
It was a little silly and a little light, but that thing is still overflowing with ice. So my detuning of the ice maker seemed to have fixed the ice maker problem, which is, it was me forgetting for a moment how magical life really is, and something so silly, allowing something so silly to take me down my spiral. And then it took something else like that happening for me to realize how silly I was being. Of course, I manifested the other ice maker malfunctioning in some way. Of course I did. Of course it was all me and my doing and my manifestation. And I detuned that stuff, and then the ice maker started working. And then it was almost overflowing. That's why, I don't know if you could tell from the picture, but the problem is now you open the door and the ice is almost spilling out onto the floor because it's so much. Morning, Carrie. Good to see you on. Yeah. So if you're just joining, I do encourage you to go back and watch the beginning of this. We're 40 minutes in now. David was sharing about his boot camp journey. I was sharing about my journey to channeling from the very beginning all the way up to where we are now. and how I do the trance channeling thing is just something I taught myself to do. And it was, I figured out how to step my persona back and allow myself to be a vessel for a consciousness that is always there anyway.
So is your kind of vibrational state in the moment really critical for that? Is that you have to, oh, sorry. If my wife should start practicing, if the sound, I can mute it.
I can hear it.
Okay.
It is, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
nice thing is that I love doing this so much that even if I'm down my spiral,
Okay.
outside of this room, it's not a studio yet. It will be outside of this room. I go up my spiral instantaneously just by jumping on Zoom or StreamYard to do this. So it instantaneously raises my. I always meet the occasion because I love doing it so much. I have yet to have an experience where, oh, sorry, they're just not here. Can't get them.
Okay.
Now in meditation, if I'm really down my spiral and I go try to force myself to meditate, yeah, I've got to do a little work sometimes to get myself back up. But there's something about doing this that I love so much that no matter what's going on the other side of that door, I can be there. I got interrupted one Sunday though. Remember that? Not too long
I
ago.
remember. Yeah.
And I
I
had
was
to
on that one. I was watching.
I was allowing it to. I think they would have shown up no matter what. I was allowing it to annoy me. So that is an example of I had to go. Okay, let's fix that situation so I can come back here and concentrate and deliver what I want to deliver here. And it took half an hour. I was back on like at 9:30, I think, that day.
Yeah.
And some of you stuck around and signed on, and I appreciated it. But yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Michael,
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah, that was happening. I was like, oh, it's kind of like sometimes you're watching something. It's happened sometimes in like concerts or stuff. You see something happening, like somebody's talking in the audience, like, okay, how's this going to play out? So you're just kind of like a fly on the wall watching it, and that's kind of how I was like, okay, let's see what happens.
I think I just hit end broadcast and jumped off and like, okay, she's not going to stop.
Right. The reason I'm sort of asking about the channeling thing is because something that I've been very interested in for many years is, what people would call peak performance. And you see this with athletic circles or sports psychology. It comes up a lot in musical study. And if you look at how, or in sciences and arts and stuff like that, how do, talking about conductors of an orchestra, some conductors just with a simple gesture can convince 100 people on a stage to go in one direction with the musical idea. Others can sit there throwing all these words out and everyone's just confused. And what separates the ones that are really, same with like some politicians are able to really be on a stage and have this feeling of command. Others are just a bit ineffective. And I kind of see that all as a different form of channeling. That's kind of why it's funny you're talking about everyone can do this or everyone. I like that line of that thinking is like, I think it's more just a matter of like it's kind of like looking at what's in our hand. Actually, I got that from a church sermon. There was a long time ago. A priest said this. They were talking. I'm trying to remember the context of it, but he was saying like if you wanted to like do good in the world or something like that, look at what's in your hand. Like, are you a good teacher? Start there. It doesn't mean you have to stay there, but start there. And so for me at least, to say, okay, well, what am I kind of already developed at is playing the trombone. So to try to approach a source connection in music or in performance makes the most sense to me. So, or if I was an athlete, which I'm not, that would probably be the direction I'd be going, or a public speaker, like a lawyer,
Yeah, I think it's all about, we have talents, we have things that we're interested in that we sort of lean into. We find maybe early on in life what we're good at, sometimes later.
Yeah.
And we're able to dial into that zone. That's why I do think we have different abilities and we're not all the same. Again, Adele obviously singing is her thing. And she said to Oprah recently that she's channeling when she sings.
Right.
She says it's not coming from me. Well, what it is whenever we're at peak performance, we are the vessel for source to express itself.
Right.
So whatever that is, artwork. I remember looking at a car one time, and I was really not the first car that I was talking about, but it was like a Bentley or Rolls Royce or something. I was really appreciating it, and my human mind was sort of like, well, do you really need that much car? I have a Mercedes convertible. Do I really need a Rolls Royce convertible? Do I really need to go to that place and have a $500,000 car? And the streams was sort of there in my appreciation of it and said that the dollar figure attached to anything is a human. That's matrix. Who cares? the person that created this car, the people that created this car, are channeling. They are channeling the very best. And any time that you're at the very best, whether it's a product or a performance or a talent or whatever, you are allowing source to flow. And yes, humanity tends to place a higher dollar value on that in a lot of cases, having that willing to pay for the experience of that pure source thing, whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And we're the ones that place the demonization or the importance or whatever you want to call it of how much the price tag is for it. That's just matrix stuff that we don't have to be party to unless we choose to be. So if the very best golfer is a billionaire, I heard the other day that Tiger Woods, I don't know if he's still considered the best golfer, but certainly one of the best golfers of our time, is a billionaire.
Hmm.
So this man has amassed, $1 billion fortune. I'm sure endorsements and advertisements and all of that, but through his game, he's done that, and that's okay. The judgment of it, the demonization of it, and all of that is a matrix thing. If we pull all of that out of it and just look at the things that we value most, it's pure source.
Right.
The one of the interesting things about our interest in water is that water is untainted source. It's like an energy. There's an energy there that is more source-like than land, and we have corrupted the land more as human beings. We are corrupting the water some, but not the way that we do the land. Like if you look at the land, surrounding, like Michael and I right now are talking about, we want to live on the ocean somewhere, and it can be anywhere. So I'm really looking at all these places, and there's so many places where it's so densely populated because everyone wants to be on the water. And so I wanted the clarity. Why is that? Well, the movement of the ocean, the energy of the ocean or a body of water, but especially the ocean, is more source-like than land. So we appreciate it more because it's more source-like. There's something about energy that we're really attracted to. We're attracted to fire. We like fire because of that energy that's happening there. It's more source-like. That's what we have source in us, and we feel like we're coming home when we observe something that is more source-like, even something man-made like a car, or something human created like you playing the perfect note. All of those things are expressions of source. So when you're at peak performance, you are allowing your ego to get completely out of the way, and you are becoming a vessel of source expression.
Yeah.
And we're not all here to express the same thing, because that's why we have this variety of things in our world to enjoy, because we're not all here to do that. Chefs express source, authors express source, channels express source, musicians express source. We all do it in our own unique way.
Yeah. It's cool you said about the ocean too, because I was out in Hawaii a few months ago for like a vacation, and it was very therapeutic for me to be in the surf. And I think I think like it's kind of like if you look at a fire, the flame is always changing, but it's unpredictable, so you never quite know which way the flame is going to go. Like kind of like looking at a lava lamp or something like that. There's something a bit hypnotic about it. And I had this in the water, but like every wave sort of like hits your body ever so slightly differently, and it's always a little bit unpredictable, like which way it's going to go. And I think that was really mentally stabilizing for me. It was really healthy. I would love to live by the ocean someday. That's an intention I have, is to be able to go. So I see we have a question from Donna.
Yeah, I'll put it up on the. If we only want things for the temporary joy it brings, if we are truly happy, don't we just need the basics? Everything else is just icing on the cake to add enjoyment for life. Yeah, because what I found in my life is that to have that enjoyment of the experience in a temporary way is so much more meaningful. And what do we do as human beings? Once we have something, we don't strive for it. We don't need it anymore. And very often we don't appreciate it anymore. It just becomes an expectation. But the stream talks a lot about well-being, this feeling safe, feeling cared for, feeling that everything is okay. That's the vibe that I get from them. That's what well-being is. Well-being, though, for one person is, I have to live in a mansion and I have to have, servants waiting on me, or I'm not doing well. I've heard people before say things like, I can't live on less than $200,000 a month. I've heard people say that. And, something that a lot of other people would love to live on a year, you can't even make that work in a month because your idea of well-being is that. But that's all an egocentric judgment, because I remember the stream said one time that if you went back, 200 years in time and showed them the lifestyle of an average person today, they would think you were one of the wealthiest people. You would have so many comforts. It would be insane. You have air conditioning in your home. You have a piece of glass in your pocket that delivers the whole world to you.
Yeah.
That's middle class life now. That you have those things is just middle, at least in the United States and in most countries. That's just average. But 200 years ago, that would have been the peak. That would have been the wealthiest person would have had those things. And now they're just average for everyone. So it's all just a matter of perspective of what the basics really are. For some people, the basics are a lot more than others. The people that live in the tiny houses, I see that sometimes. That would drive me insane to live in a tiny house, a little space that's like a bunk. Like Stacy right now is living out on the trail, camping, and she's loving it. She's absolutely loving it. And we just laugh at how, my idea of camping is something less than a 5-star hotel. Oh yeah, the basics. But I can dial into a vibration and be at peace with something if that's going to be the reality. It's fine. But the idea of what the basics are all a matter of perspective anyway.
It's also interesting for me, like when I want something and I achieve it, and I'm very happy, but it's very quick that I'm sort of wanting the next thing.
Yeah. We're expansive beings, and consumerism is taught to us as expansion.
Yeah. And so like I think of like what would constitute for me now a slow month, going back, 5-10 years in my career would have been like, that would be like huge. Like, oh, I get to play. Now it's kind of like, oh, that's a slow month, but it's sort of like, but I think it's, like even I think it's not so much about getting that thing. I'm not going to try and say here, you're not actually getting anywhere. It's just it's different layers of kind of like achieving something and then seeing what's next and seeing what's next. And it's kind of a beautiful process, really, if you think about it, that there's no real end goal in sight. I think that's the problem. A lot of people think like, if I get this thing, I'll be happy. Or if I achieve this point, then I will have arrived. And when you let go that there really is no arrival, you're just going through this process of growth and expansion and finding what's next. Then it becomes really exciting because it takes a lot of the pressure off too, I think, you don't get hung up on this thing didn't work out right now, so now I'll be upset about it. That doesn't really happen,
right.
Much,
Yeah, the Matrix teaches us these expectations that we always have to be consuming more and more and more, that these experiences are things that we have to hold on to and latch onto forever. I hear people say things about their forever home. Oh, we're going to build our forever home. And I have, I'm 54 and I haven't had a desire for a forever home. I mean, here we just spent, we will have spent the better part of this year remodeling this house, and we're already sitting out there talking about what's next. We're bored with the desert. The house is beautiful. We're going to enjoy it while we're here. And I look around and we've put some, I've done the high rise thing. I've lived in a high rise in San Francisco and lived in this beautiful building and loved that I had that experience until I didn't love it anymore, and then I moved to Palm Springs and I had a mid-century modern house, and I loved that I lived there for almost 3 years. And then now we remodeled Michael's house and it was kind of a modern house. And then we're like, okay, I'm sick of modern. Now I want Spanish. So now we have this Spanish house that we're redoing. And I'm looking around. There's so many things in this house that I love that we've done. Love. But I now see that in short order, I'm going to love selling it to somebody else
Right.
and moving on to something totally different. Like, yeah, living on the ocean, that'll be so cool.
Yeah.
And really opening our minds up to that could be anywhere. It doesn't even have to be in the United States.
Right.
I want to walk out. I don't want to be right on the beach necessarily. Michael does. He likes the beach. I don't like the beach. I want to be in a swimming pool overlooking the beach. So, I want that ocean vista, just to see that water out there. I've lived on the water once in my life in San Francisco. I lived right on the bay, and I loved it. If you look back at some of my old YouTube videos, I used to do videos out on the bay because I was like literally on top of the water. So it was more like almost like a houseboat that I lived in. It was really cool. So I want to get back to being on the water. I do really enjoy the energy of the water and the vibe, but I'm still enjoying this. But I know that this is temporary. Everything is temporary.
Right.
Everything. And I've even gotten so comfortable with beings coming and going out of my life. We were talking about friends. We had this weird day yesterday where all of these old friends that we had before COVID, acquaintances really, popped back into our day yesterday. It happened 3 times yesterday. And people we haven't heard from or seen, we ran into, we heard from, whatever. And I don't need to go rekindle that relationship or friendship. Oh, good seeing you. It was nice that we were friends with that person for a while we were vibing, and then we weren't vibing anymore, and it's okay. And the other night, Michael's mother was asking me about the dog. She says, "Don't you worry about her getting older? She's 6 now. Well, we'll just turn 6. And I love her very much." And I said, "No, I don't worry about her getting older. She's a dog. She's 6. We may get 6 more years out of her or 8 more years out of her and have that experience. And I'm lucky to have it. And that's just what it is." And she was, like dumbfounded, the idea that I wouldn't be just completely destroyed at the idea of my beloved pet dying.
Right.
But they do that. They live 10, 12, 15 years max usually. And I've been through that before, and it's never fun, but I can appreciate the span of time that little dog is in my life, whatever that time is. And I kind of view everything that way now. Everything is an experience that flows in, you enjoy it, and it flows out. And I think about, is there really joy in latching onto something and locking it down, whether it's a relationship or a home or a job or a business or whatever, forever? There's no forever. This is a physical, temporary experience.
Yeah.
So why can't we shift our mindset toward everything is that? Everything is an experience that flows in and flows out. And if you're not so hung up on the loss of the last thing, maybe you pick up on and manifest the next thing.
That's a good point. It's
whatever
like,
it is.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. When it's letting go of what has passed kind of opens the door for something totally new and unexpected to come in. And I found this with jobs. Every time I had like a job that was sort of like fading away, it wasn't working anymore. Like in an orchestra, like whatever, regular work coming in, it was always like, once I kind of started to let go of that, suddenly another employer would show up. Another orchestra suddenly needed somebody, a trombonist, and suddenly I'm getting this other work. It's sort of like if you think of like a person who never stays single. The moment they leave a relationship, they have another boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, partner or whatever. And but I think it's like the letting go of,
Yeah.
What is
Well, the funny, you just got to describe me though, because I got into a relationship at 24. I was in that relationship for almost 20 years, and then I split, and I was going to be single forever. Once you're in a 20-year relationship and it ends, you're just you denounce relationships, at least for a while. And then I met somebody, and within 6 months, I was in another relationship, and that lasted about 5 years. And then that ended, and then again, 6 months later, there's Michael. And so it was funny because every time I wasn't looking for anybody, I was enjoying being single. And I think my joy of being single allowed that next experience to move in.
Yeah, I think so.
And not needing to hammer and make it a forever thing necessarily.
Yeah.
Just letting it be.
Really, it's all fear-based. And any of that, is like holding on to something is a fear that you can't manifest it again.
Yeah, I have something good and I better hang on to it. I was raised that way.
Right.
You know, my father, gosh, of my two siblings, I was the middle child. I was the one that didn't get past the 10th grade. You know, my brother and sister were both top of their class. They went to college. They did great in college. They both went to grad school of some sort. And my sister's an attorney. My brother was an accountant by trade, but ended up in a leadership career. And I was the one that was supposed to be, my father always said I was going to be a ditch digger or in prison. Those are your choices. And neither one of those things happened. I ended up being more successful in my career than either of my siblings. And I think my father was so happy about that. You know, he came to Seattle, he saw my big house and all the stuff and everything. Oh, wow, my rich son, my rich son. He kept saying that. And he was so destroyed when I told him that I was leaving that to do this. And of course, right away, it's like, you're what? You're doing, what is that? And you're quitting your job. You got this great job. And, you know, oh my God, that's crazy. Why would you do that? He still doesn't understand it. You know, to this day, he doesn't understand me at all. And that's okay. But, you know, that was just what was drilled into me, is that once you have something good, you got to hang on to it. And I say, what I hated about my career was the rat race of all of these people that were in this executive level in this company, you know, just throwing their lives away in service to the CEO and the company, you know, for a fraction of what the CEO was paying himself. But man, he expected, you better show up on meetings on your vacation, you know, whatever's going on. If you were taking time away from your life to show up to his meetings, you got praise all over the place. Oh, I knew you wouldn't miss a meeting just because you're on vacation. Oh, yes, I'm on the beach right now. I'm calling in. It was celebrated, you know. So it's like not a moment away from the work environment, all in service of him, really.
Right.
And the backstabbing that people would do to each other, and you know, that everything was based on how they thought he was going to react to everything. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible work environment that people stuck themselves in because they thought, I've clawed my way to this level on the ladder. I've got the title, I've got the salary and the bonuses, and I've got to stay here as long as I can.
Right.
I've got to stay here. But what I did notice in the company is that everybody aged out of the job. You know, everybody eventually became the old crony that got, you know, boot, except for the CEO, who was like in his 80s. But everybody sort of outlived their usefulness and they were gone. And I'm like, wow, that's going to be my existence, that I'm going to stay here and fight and claw my way to this level of upper middle management and then be obsolete. And then what? You know, then what? And I wanted to have a more adventurous, you know, journey than that. And that's so Matrix to me, to have that fear that's sticking you in a job or a relationship. You know, I've had 3 relationships, 2 divorces now, and I love the fact that I'm not going to stay in something where I'm not happy. The first time I did, I stayed there longer than I should have. The second time, as soon as I realized, nope, that was it. You know, that was it. It was a nice experience. We're still friends, but it was just that. It was just an experience. All right, we've gone over time now, so hopefully we delivered a little soul food for everybody today.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But if not, that's okay. That's your experience, right? We're the new hippies. It's all good, man. It's all good.
Yeah. So it's all good for me.
Thank you so much for jumping on. You know, you always have the great questions that bring up the best conversations. So we have to do another podcast real soon. And the podcast, I thought we were going to get the new episode out last week. I think it's going to happen this week. I promise the podcast is coming back. We're still recording episodes. We're just backed up right now in production because we switched producers, but it is coming back.
Right.
So thank you all for watching.
Yeah, cool.
Happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you, David.
Thank you.